Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Bible Battles. My family and I are going through some books of the Bible. We're talking about our favorite ones, and we're struggling to choose some over the other because they're all great. They all tell an amazing story about a God who loves us so much that he wants to be with us. But we're talking about our favorite books, and we're choosing some over the others. We're continuing in round one, and we've got some great battles coming up today. Are you guys excited?
No.
Yay!
You're not excited about this?
It's just pain and misery now.
Oh my goodness, we're not even near the end of it. You would think that it would be easier in the first round and harder as we go, but it's just hard for you.
Well, yeah, I mean, get somebody else in here to help me out a little bit.
Oh yes, you think we're conspiring against you.
Something like that. I don't know. It's just, everything's not gone my way this round.
If you choose wisely, you will be happy.
They choose with peer pressure.
All right, well, let's dive right in. We've got some great books to talk about. First up, we have two books from the New Testament. 1 Corinthians coming up against 2 Peter. So really what we're deciding right now is, do we like Peter better than Paul? Because those are the two authors of these books. 1 Corinthians, an amazing story that's told in this letter about how the good news of Jesus and the gospel affects everything in our life. It affects our relationships. It affects how we eat. It affects our worship gatherings. So an amazing book. And then 2 Peter is kind of Peter's farewell letter. He's near the end of things. He knows his time is short. He's addressing false teachers. He's coming on very strong against people who are saying there's not going to be a second coming. So he's got some important stuff to say. And of course, he does say that Jesus will return. And just like God has spoken into the world, into existence, and he's done all the amazing things in the past, he will do so again in the future. So here are the books we have head to head. What do we think?
Third. Paul writes a lot of books.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. He's written a lot of books in the New Testament.
Probably like at least a third of the New Testament. And for me, all of the kind of books, they all have different meanings, but they're all kind of the same thing. It's a letter written to a specific type of people who need help with a problem. 2 Peter is more home run for me, I guess, because it's basically saying that Jesus is going to come again, and now a lot of people are saying he is going to come, and a lot of people are saying he's not going to come. And I think 2 Peter is a really good, important book to kind of share with others about how Jesus is still coming. It just may take a bit longer than we were expecting.
Okay, so your vote is?
2 Peter.
2 Peter, all right. Well, for me, I think 2 Peter is great, but I have to go with 1 Corinthians because of a few things. One, when I was first becoming a Christian, 1 Corinthians had my most hated verse in all the Bible. This is weird to say, right? But it did. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 31, I did not like when I was struggling to become a Christian, because it says in chapter 10, verse 31, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do all to the glory of God. And that verse just messed with me, because I realized now that my belief in God affected everything that I did and all that I was. And now I love that verse. It's very meaningful. But at the time, it was so stressful. And of course, 1 Corinthians is where we have chapter 13 is the love chapter, talking about how we should live. It's an amazing part as well. And 1 Corinthians 15 is where Paul talks about the importance of the resurrection. Without that, we have nothing. And of course, that Jesus will come again, like you're saying, in a twinkling of an eye will all be changed. So for me, that one makes it a little bit better, but I do like 2 Peter as well. So Jeanette, you get to be the tiebreaker.
I am going to be the tiebreaker. I like both. Again, 2 Peter is nice. I like the shorter books, I think, of the Bible. But 1 Corinthians,
There's a but.
I gotta go with 1 Corinthians this time. Just because as I read it, it has a lot of meaning for us today with the whole worshiping in church or worshiping from home, and what does church really mean? What is a real church? And is it going to church, being in the church and reaching out there, or is it reaching out in our community, thinking about church as outside of the box, you know, things that we can be doing now. Church has started up again, but with the church or people not being comfortable to coming into a building, what does church look like? It also talks about how we can all have different opinions, but we still need to love each other. And I see a lot of that in the world. You know, people are debating against vaccines, about masks, about marriage, about lesbians, about everything. Politics. I try not to do politics, so I forgot that one. But everybody has their opinion, and we still need to love. That is the center of First Corinthians, is love. Everything needs to come back to love. Am I sacrificing, and what am I sacrificing for? Is it for selfish reasons, or is it to help somebody else?
That's the extreme ethic there, is to love and to think of others above ourselves. So, 1 Corinthians is the winner.
Hi, buddy.
So in thinking of others, I think that this show could probably just be a one-person show. I pick all of them, and then we just go with the opposite, because
you're always wrong.
Once again,
you're wrong.
No, you guys are just bullying me.
On the last time I went with you, we got rid of Deuteronomy together.
Yeah,
like
which has
brown
been
woman.
the one thing that people have complained about in comments, is the two of you and your choice there. So, all right,
I stand by it.
Let's continue here. We've got now, we leave the New Testament, we go back to the Old Testament, and we've got the prophet Joel, a short book, Jeanette, coming up against a long book in Joshua. And Joel is a great prophetic book about the day of the Lord, as God had worked in the past, and visions of locusts are in there, and how God's day of the Lord will come in the future, how God will deal with evil, and the promise of pouring out the Holy Spirit, the promise of a restored creation. So, magnificent book, though only, I think, 3 chapters, if I remember right.
Did you find the right book this time?
I did find the right book this time.
Going up against Joshua, which is a very famous book. Many people know many of the stories in there. A lot of stories in that. Stories of battle, conquest, war, which sometimes can be hard to read. But what you have to realize here is it's not God so much saying, I like these people and I don't like these people. It was more so God saying people's faithfulness to Him and how they were living would react whether or not problems would come their way. Because when Israel was faithful to God and just kind of let Him do His thing, march around the city, and boom, Jericho falls. When Israel wasn't faithful, the story of Achan, horrible defeat. And then promises at the end where Joshua says, choose. Israel, choose who you're going to serve. And again, if we choose God, things will go well. If not, problems will come. Not that if you choose God, you're never going to have problems in life. That's not what Joshua is saying at all, but he's saying we all need to make a choice in our life. So, I can go first this time if you want. Or
You
guys
went
can
first
go.
last time.
No,
No,
I
Ethan
did.
went first.
So
Okay.
we can save you for last if you want. What do you say?
Okay, I'll go first.
All right.
Then I don't get blamed for being conspirarized.
Is that a word?
I think she's
It is
making
now.
up new words.
So we're up against Joshua and Joel. What I found interesting when I was looking at now I really can't talk.
I was looking at my drawers, and recently,
Joel, and it is kind of, as I looked at just like the little titles of the chapters, it almost sounded like it's the Bible all summed up.
Mhm.
You know, there's disaster, there's horrible things happening, but then we figure that out. Everything bad is happening. We see everything is bad, and then the Lord comes. He makes everything new, and then we're judged and blessed. And so I kind of feel like that's the whole Bible. Things are bad, and then, you know, in the end, we all end up, if we choose the right person to worship, then we are blessed.
Okay.
Joshua, a lot of history again.
Yeah.
So I was that one's hard for me to read, but I suppose when we went to Jerusalem, when we went to Israel, seeing Jericho there,
Right.
and learning more about Rahab,
Mhm.
and how she was a prostitute, how she was one of society's worst, and she turned from her ways to
Yeah.
worship God, and God trusted her to help the spies get out.
Integral part of the story. A lady, a woman,
Mhm.
who played such an important role in the gospel story. So, is there a choice here?
It's Joshua.
Joshua, okay.
I'm
I
gonna
thought-
go with both.
I thought it was going to be Joel there for a second. All right, Ethan, do you want me to go next?
Yeah, I want you to go next.
All right. I like both of these books as well. They are both excellent, but I tend to lean more towards the narrative stories, and so Joshua's one I really like. Although the war stuff can be tough to read, and you have to look back and make sure you see God's loving hand at work in there. If you just read Joshua, you're going to just think, oh my goodness. You have to read it in the whole story, remembering what's happened in Genesis and the books before. So again, and that's something to remember about all the books, is that it's the whole narrative fit together, not just one piece or one verse or one book. But Joshua, I think I'm going to go with as well. So
I mean, that is kind of what we're doing, is we're taking a certain piece of it
right.
and choosing.
That's true.
But yeah, for the sole sake of not being left out, I'm gonna go with Joshua.
You don't want to be wrong again.
Yeah. I know I was gonna vote Joshua anyway. I kind of like those more story parts, and the Battle of Jericho is probably one of my more favorite stories from the Bible. And, like,
And who can go against a book that a good song came from?
yeah,
Joshua fit the battle of Jericho.
yeah, he fit the
That's right.
battle.
He fit the battle.
Yeah.
And if he was from the South, I guess he'd fit it.
Yeah, before this thing, I always thought, Joel, what is Joel? And then I thought about Joshua. I'm like, yeah, I know so much more about Joshua. It's so much easier to pick Joshua.
Okay. Well, maybe you need to do more reading in
Well,
Joel.
yeah. And
You
then I
can do it in a
did.
day.
Yeah, it's a quick book to read. Okay, so now we are bumping into the next round to see who will win between now it's New Testament versus Old Testament. 1 Corinthians, Paul's letter to the church in Corinth, versus Joshua. I haven't gone first yet, so maybe I should go first this time.
Have fun.
Again, normally I go with the narratives, but I'm going to flip that, and I'm going to go with 1 Corinthians simply because of those amazing chapters that I really enjoy. Chapter 13, talking about the importance of love, even when using our spiritual gifts. And chapter 15, which just amazing talk about second coming and the resurrection and the importance of the resurrection. Without it, Christianity just falls. If you don't have a risen Savior, all you have is a guy on the cross who's dead. And so the importance of that is just can't be overstated. So that's my pick.
You want me to go next?
I'll go with Joshua.
I'm going with Joshua. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
why? Now you're going to accuse me of
I
being
know.
conspiratory.
that's kind of why I wanted to go, so I can blame you guys.
I see. Something that we didn't mention about 1 Corinthians that I really enjoy too is a lot of the anti-women.
Oh, those
Be
verses,
submissive
yes.
to your husband. Your body is not your own. A lot of that is in 1 Corinthians as
Mhm.
well. But I have, over the years, as I've learned and studied and read what comes after those verses, it gives me peace. That my body isn't my own. That and your body isn't your own.
That's right.
And so if I'm going to do anything destructive to myself, or Michael's going to go get a tattoo,
Don't have any.
that he needs to realize that that's tattooing my body as well. And we have to treat our bodies not selfishly, but as we are treating them for somebody else also.
Yeah. Paul doesn't in 1 Corinthians 14. He seems to kind of push women down. That's a verse that I know many ladies, chapter 14, verse 33 in that area, they're like, what? Because he says, let women be silent in the churches.
Mm-hmm.
And people are like, oh my goodness. And some use that to say that a woman shouldn't teach or shouldn't preach. That was not what Paul was getting after at all. He says, let them be silent. If they want to learn anything, let them ask their husbands at home. So were they trying to teach? Were they trying to preach? Apparently not. They were trying to learn. And they were talking during the service, maybe separated men over here, women over here, and it was making the service chaotic as they were asking questions. Paul doesn't say they shouldn't ask questions and they shouldn't try to learn. Instead, he lifts women up and says, that's great that you want to do this, but do it orderly. So if you've got questions, ask it at home. So don't use the Bible to say what the Bible writers never meant to say. And Paul actually really lifts ladies up in the Bible and in 1 Corinthians, which I guess is our winner. So in the future, we're going to come back to, in the third round, we're going to see Acts of the Apostles going up against 1 Corinthians. But that's it for our episode today. We're going to be coming back next time, and our battles that time are going to be 1 Thessalonians going up against 1 Timothy, two great books from the New Testament. And then we're going to have James, a wonderful New Testament book, going up against 2 Chronicles. So we're going to see what wins. And
A lot of New Testament.
Yeah, a lot of New Testament right here, and we're going to see if Ethan can be wrong again.
Oh, I'm very sure.
That you're going to be wrong again?
Why not?
We'll see.
They're all short books.
Apparently we have a lot to
Except for
teach.
2 Chronicles.
Well, we know you're not voting 2 Chronicles.
No, we have studying to do now. We hope
Yes.
you will do the same. Read through these books, be blessed by them, and talk to your family and friends about which books matter to you and why. That's what this is all about. So thanks for joining us for Bible Battles. We'll see you again soon. Take care, everyone. Stay safe.